This record high heat is something that Texans do not want to see. And Brandy, that's partially because of ERCOT.
No doubt, Steph. 4 months after the Texas power grid meltdown during the winter storm, Governor Abbott is set to sign 2 bills aimed at preventing that from happening again. They're Senate Bills 2 and 3. So what do? I am glad you asked. The basics here. They require weatherization of most power generators. There are some caveats for natural gas providers. They create an outage alert system, so you'll get more notice if you're going to lose power. They allow those power companies to get ratepayer-backed bonds and loans. So this means your power company can charge you a fee to get it back in the black. A lot of them are in the hole after the winter storm. These bills also cut back the ERCOT board from 16 members to 11, most of whom will now be required to live in Texas. And of course, it's all in response to what happened during the winter storm in February. But critics say none of the legislation goes far enough. For example, there's not really a timeline for when power generators need to have winterization efforts complete. They add the Texas grid, which is separated from the rest of the country, is still vulnerable as we head into the hottest months of the year, and that could mean summertime blackouts. Today is just a reminder, Cheetah, that it's heating up.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Feels like temperatures at 100. You're right about that, and that's almost the case right through the upcoming weekend.